Hey, toy fans, and hey, giant robot changing fans. Scott ToyGuru Neitlich here on the Spectre Creative Channel, and I'm talking about robot toys today. And there have been a lot of robot toys, and specifically robot toys that change from one mode to another mode. Call them changers, call them switcheroos, whatever you want to call them. This is a very interesting play pattern. And it may be up for debate, but the king of all of these toys is the Transformers. They're a billion-dollar brand that is still a billion-dollar brand, multiple decades after their launch. Why is this? What is it about the Transformers that makes them stand out from all other transforming robot brands? And there have been a lot of them over the years. And more importantly, what is it about transforming robot toys that's different from any other toy line out there? So let's jump in today on the Spectre Creative Channel and do a deep dive on Transformers. First though, let's briefly cover their origin. This has been done there's tons of YouTube videos out there that will explain this, but the short version is Transformers originally came from Japan. A company called Diaclone made a whole bunch of different toys that were one mode that transformed into a robot. And Hasbro took a look at these and said, hey, we could sell those in the US. So essentially they took multiple toy lines that were produced by Diaclone and basically, along with Takara Toys and Hasbro, were able to bring them to the US. Characters that started off as Convoy in Japan became Optimus Prime in the US, literally repackaged and offered with a different storyline. Same exact toy, but now he was the leader of heroic Autobots. In fact, speaking of the Autobots, the good guys, they all started off basically as vehicles. That was all of the vehicle lines, or all the vehicle that turned into toys from Japan were made into the good guys. And these were, again, multiple different transforming robot toy lines combined into one in the US. This is not how they were sold in Japan. And then for the bad guys, basically if it wasn't a vehicle like a car, if it was a plane or a gun or a boombox, then they became the bad guys, the Decepticons. That was kind of the easy way Hasbro had of differentiating them. But again, not the way they were sold in Japan, not the way they were merchandised, but exact same toys, just taking literally the Japanese tool, sometimes recoloring it, sometimes offering it exactly as is, swapping out colors, but getting them to the US. Now, the key for Transformers' success was the storyline. Well, one of the keys. And that was developed by Marvel Comics. When Hasbro had the line from Takara, it didn't have a storyline. It just had transforming cars and planes and things into robots. So at Marvel, Jim Shooter, who was editor-in-chief at the time, he later went on to do Valiant and Defiant comics. He actually started writing comics when he was 13 years old, writing Legion of Superheroes, which is a crazy story into itself. And then Denny O'Neil, who actually wrote the very first comic I ever read, which was Iron Man 203. So together, they created a backstory for these robots. And again, the short version is that they came from another planet, they crash landed on Earth, and 5,000 or 4,000 years later, they awoke and took up where their battle left off, where the Autobots were defending humanity and the Decepticons were trying to enslave them. And what was important was they gave all of these vehicles/robots personalities and reason for being. This one was the sidekick, this one was the leader, this one was the comic relief, but essentially infused personality and history into these toys that otherwise were just characters that transformed from mode A to mode B. All of this culminated in the animated series and in the '86 Transformers movie. This is way before the live-action films. This was, well, honestly, the '86 Transformers movie I think was one of my favorite movies of all time, and really still is. You had, Unicron, the planet-destroying robot, coming along, and, music by Weird Al. It was crazy. And it also traumatized children, because in this movie, which was actually a marketing vehicle to basically introduce the 86, 87 toy line, what they did was they basically killed off the 84, 85 toy line, literally, on screen. So kids were actually seeing the on-screen death of Optimus Prime, and there are stories of children locking themselves in closets and throwing temper tantrums, and I can understand this. This is a pretty heavy thing for a child to deal with. And anyway, that's just kind of a whole other aside. What we're really going to jump into now is play patterns. In addition to the storyline created by Marvel Comics, it was the play pattern that made Transformers unique. So a quick refresher, if you haven't seen some of my other videos on play patterns, what a play pattern is it's not this. It's not the ability to play and put together a pattern. It is an established way that children interact with toys. So a good example is what the industry calls hair play, when people comb the hair of dolls, or speed play, when people meaning kids, take cars and race them and smash them into each other, or smashing car play. And then action figures fall into actually what's called doinky doink play, meaning, I'm going to get you, no, I'm going to get you, doink, boink, 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 back and forth, back and forth. That tends to be the name that they give action figure play. And Transformers does work for this. It is an example of doinky doink play. You can have one character, smashing into the other and saying, I'm going to beat you up. No, I'm going to beat you up. No, I'm going to go over here now. And that is one way they're played. But to truly understand Transformers, you have to understand puzzles and the play pattern attached to puzzles. Now, obviously, puzzles are a different type of toy. It's a toy sold to kids and adults alike. Has been around for literally thousands of years. Modern puzzles being relatively like this. This is actually a computer version, because you can have puzzles on screens now. Not that I recommend that, but they're sold in the game aisle, and it's more of an interactive play pattern. But it's really about victory, because puzzles are all about the payoff. At the end of the day, when you put that last piece in, you feel a sense of pride and accomplishment in what you did. That's the objective of puzzle play. So how are Transformers puzzle play? And how is this the secret to their success? Well, that's really what sets Transformers apart from any other toy line. It had an amazing storyline, but that alone was not the secret. So you have to think of Transformers not as action figures, but as 3D puzzles. And you can see 3D puzzles sold in kind of like the science aisle, or Barnes & Noble has a whole aisle of these things. They're a lot of fun, but they tend to be more sold as kind of like science kits or smart kid toys. 3D puzzles, though, like I said, have gone back thousands of years. The ancient cultures created puzzles and created them in 3D, various ways that you had to fit things together or separate them. These are found in cultures all over the world. Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Americas, Chinese, you name it. Every ancient culture, one of the things they had in common was they all loved puzzles. So, how are Transformers a puzzle? Well, look at what Optimus Prime does. He starts off as a robot, and then he becomes a vehicle. Think about the Rubik's Cube. Think about the way you twist it in your hand and move it around. Why was this so popular? Because there was a tactile, touching feel that you could actually move it to create something new. And that is exactly what Transformers is. When you got a toy vehicle in the package, then taking it out, exactly like a Rubik's Cube, not exactly, but basically by twisting, folding, and moving with a tactile feel, using your hands to actually create the movement and separate the parts, you could turn that vehicle into a robot. And that robot had a personality, and it was your friend. It was your robot buddy. So you basically had the power to change a car or a vehicle, which is a very imposing thing for a child. Vehicles to a kid are, these huge giant things that are massive. And for a child, everything in the world, buildings, cars, they feel very intimidated. So by being able to change something that's very intimidating, like a tractor trailer truck, ooh, say that 5 times real fast, or a jet plane, or any type of vehicle, but vehicles themselves representing the impossible for a child, or something very overwhelming, and that's how they were packaged. They were packaged as vehicles. And then turning that with your own fingers and your own momentum and your own brain power into a robot that's going to be your buddy, your friend, or at least join in doinky doink play. That was awesome. What a payoff. Not only were you making a puzzle that you could, or not only solving a puzzle, but you were creating a friend by doing this. And Transformers didn't obviously just do vehicles. They did things like guns, which, again, before modern political correctness, guns were, a big part of children's play pattern. Or in this case in the 80s, a Walkman. Again, something that they would see adults with that's very intimidating because that's an adult thing, but now here it is in their hands, and they could change it into a friend. Even dinosaurs, they even did dinosaur Transformers, where again, you could take that very intimidating dinosaur and turn it into your robot buddy. Hasbro really turned it up a notch when they introduced in their second or third year the triple Transformers, where they could basically go into 3 different modes. Astro Train was a favorite of mine because he was a spaceship, a train, and a robot. Or in this case, a tank, a plane, and a robot. 3 modes, 3 is better than 2. You're just literally adding an additional puzzle element. And again, additional vehicles, additional big, real-world, intimidating things that kids can now feel control over. Another great example of turning it up a notch is things like the Constructicons. So here you had 6 different robot buddies, all with their own faces, all with their own personalities, that first could turn into construction vehicles. And construction vehicles, again, are, represent to children very intimidating, immense things that they can't have control over and, are intimidating or huge. So being able to take a construction vehicle and with your own hands manipulate it and turn it into a robot, that's cool. And what's even cooler, now you could take all 6 of those robots, and there was a second mode where you could combine them together into a giant robot. It just works on so many levels. The emotional connection is just this continuous cycle where you can transform back and forth, and every single time you're getting that same emotional reward. That dopamine activity is being released in the child's brain because they know what to expect as a reward, and they can create it with their own hands. They're empowered to solve this puzzle. And compare that to things like screenplay, not screenplays, but using screens, where every time there's like a beep or a whiz, it's going to reward that child with something digital. That is the type of addiction that creates is very comparable to drugs, alcohol, and gambling. It is not a healthy form of dopamine. Kids getting a payoff from a screen is literally rotting their brain. Not to be too direct. Versus the joy of discovery, of solving a 3D puzzle and transforming it from mode A to mode B is such a positive dopamine release that combining that with the personalities of Transformers and the entertainment, which again continues to this day, and the fact that you're transforming things that are intimidating into things that are friendly. Giant truck into friendly robot. There is a reason why this brand has lasted and been a multi-generational brand. Adults who grew up with Transformers still love them, and kids today into them just as much. It's an amazing brand with an amazing, unique play pattern with a combination of storyline and discovery payoff that makes it a true toy to make children happy. I hope you liked this video. I hope it hit on some things about Transformers you may not have thought about before. leave your comments and questions below. I would always love to answer them, and a subscription and a like is appreciated because it tells YouTube to share this video with more people. Thank you so much. See you next time.